What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome on in to the PWTorch Fireside Chat for Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. It's Revolution weekend on the horizon here, and I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zach Haydorn alongside Tyler Sage. What's up, man?
Hey, not much. Excited to preview an AEW show. We did the Dynamite preview yesterday on the channel, and I, was telling everyone that we can go back to the good old days when we were talking mainly AEW on this platform, good or bad, depending on what was happening. So an AEW focused episode, I think, for everyone. And Zach is here, I see, so he should be happy about that as well. So,
yes, yeah. Well, I mean, hey, it's the WWE will get their time, but this is very much. I mean, it's still crazy that it doesn't seem like AEW only does for like major pay-per-views. If you count
Forbidden
Door, but it's true, and so like it is a pretty big weekend for them when you think about it in those terms. Hello to Hazan, hello to Zach. Thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate it, and to everybody else, thank you as well. So yeah, we're gonna spend a good chunk of the show today previewing Revolution. So hopefully you guys can drop all your comments, and takes, and predictions in the chat and get that thing going, and we'll run through the whole card. Also want to spend some time at the end of the show talking what's going to go down on SmackDown tomorrow night between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, who will be on the same show, and presumably, I would imagine, some sort of face-to-face situation between the two of them. But we'll get to that. We will get to that a little bit later. We should have AEW Dynamite ratings come in as we're talking at some point, so we can talk about that. But yeah, we'll run through the card, and then we'll just talk about each match. Tyler, you were messaging me before we got on the air today. Only 8 matches. That still was jarring to me, knowing that there's a 60-minute Iron Man match included in those 8. You took a more like, good, only 8 matches approach. But I mean, thank goodness it's not like 13 matches. I mean, that would just be overkill. So I think even though it's still going to be a long night, this is better than what we've seen.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure we will add 2 or 3, whatever it's called, buy-in, 0 hour, whatever they decide to call it, right. On Rampage or on social media or on Road to whatever. But for the starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time, going till probably 12:45, 1 o'clock Eastern time on a Sunday. That's not a holiday the next day, which is very dumb. Going that late on a Sunday, but that will be added. So 0 hour, thank you, Zach. So we'll see that, but it's a very Tony Khan thing to do. I thought at first it was a trying to change his booking tactics and kind of compete with Triple H doing his tight, 5-6 match pay-per-views that make every match feel at least as important as possible. I don't think, for example, the Bianca Belair matches the last 2 pay-per-views have felt very impactful, but they were on the show, so it gives some added weight to it. But then you reminded me of the hour-long match, and I was like, oh yeah, that just makes sense, because now it's like, 7 matches will each get 20 minutes with video packages, and then you'll have an hour-long match, basically. So you can do the math there, but I think it's going to be a 4-ish hour show, not including 0 hours. So, same old on that front. And it looks like Hazan had ratings in. I don't know if someone's reporting that early or not, because I don't have it on my end, but I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't have it on my end.
They're pretty close.
So we'll,
but that tracks. I think that's fair for the lineup and the lack of. If you are a viewer of AEW television, a go-home show is kind of inconsequential for the most part. Except this kind of felt like the SmackDowns before WrestleMania a little bit, with getting the kind of the everyone squeeze everyone on the show and matches out of the way on TV. So,
I mean, I don't know. I think that's a not an encouraging sign. for this pay-per-view. To have the number drop that much. Not that they necessarily have to stay at 1 million or anything like that, but like, you know, they're trying to sell pay-per-views, you know, with this audience, you know, and so to have that audience to decline that way, I mean, it may not matter at all. You may still get your solid 130,000 buys or what, you know, whatever it is. But to see that drop in the go home show, you know, I mean, you could deduce a lot from that. In that, is there interest there? Like, you know, because they, you know, WWE doesn't have as much of an incentive to put on like a huge hot go home show. Even though they want people to watch on Peacock, they're not trying to get you to spend $50, you know, for one wrestling show. To me, that makes their pitch and that go home show for AEW different. So if it's 833, I think Tony Khan's probably not thrilled about that number, even if it may not fully impact, you know, what the final buy rate is for the event.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a good rate number, but you know, if you look at the lineup yesterday, as I'm, you know, previewing it here, I'm like, oh, this is a pretty bad lineup on paper, where you've got 2 gimmick matches with, you know, I think the ladder match obviously having like, these are your solid mid card guys that can do some damage in AEW is kind of how it was presented, which is good. And then the tag team match, you know, we can talk about if you want to, but being somehow more of a disaster than last week's tag team battle royal, which I thought was not great booking as well. So, you know, there's not a lot on the show, and I think the only thing that would get me to buy the pay-per-view, if I just watched last night, was the Moxley promo where he's dripping blood on the stairs. I thought that was an awesome promo. And then, you know, the 4-minute Danielson promo where MJF didn't say anything, I thought was a nice touch, where MJF's been controlling the narrative on that. So yeah, both those. Without that, like, I was not excited to watch it, to see who's going to face Samoa Joe next week on television, even though it's going to probably be Wardlow and Samoa Joe is going to be on Ring of Honor more often than not, and etc. So, you know, and all the women's stuff, which I think has been good, and I'm interested for that match for sure, but that being squeezed into a match that didn't really need to be, it could have been its own segment. So some things on there that were not, I didn't think going to be very good. I guess like 875 to 925 was my range, so a little less than that. But with NBA coming back, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of where AEW is right now, especially with a hot WWE product going into Mania. Feel like they're treading water, need to get through this pay-per-view and then get stuff going hot. You know, have Adam Cole be a big star, potentially take on MJF at Double or Nothing, something like that, getting all that stuff in New Japan, maybe Mercedes appears, all that stuff. So there's it's not all doom and gloom. I just think it's a down small period in the company from a creative standpoint. Everyone's kind of burned out of the same sort of booking pattern. We saw that last night. I think was a microcosm of that. Yeah,
I can't argue with that. Well, let's go through the card here and start previewing the show. Hello to everybody else who's joined us live and who are in the chat. Dr. Ross, Sean, Tracy, good to have you here with us. Looking forward to hearing your comments on the show as we jump in here and preview Revolution. Why don't we start with that Jon Moxley Adam Page match, because I like that promo a lot this week too. I thought it was, you know, it felt fresh to me. Like, it felt like, you know, yes, we've seen Jon Moxley bleed a lot. You know, that's I don't mean the bleeding. I mean, just, you know, it's in a stairwell. You know, he's got the loud volume of his voice is kind of bouncing off the walls. Obviously, the look is intense with the bleeding. I didn't mind. Sean in the chat here is not in favor of the animal talk. I was okay with it. I think, you know, I wouldn't be okay with it if anybody else is saying it in AEW, but like Jon Moxley, like, kind of, I feel like he is like that apex predator in AEW, and so, you know, that resonated to me, and I just thought the kind of the overall sentiment of the promo was just, hey, you're not going to be able to go where I can go, and because of that reason, I'm going to win, and I'm just not going to win, but I'm going to change your life forever, and then on the flip side, I thought that Adam Page's promo was solid too, totally different in terms of tone. Like, I thought that was a really good, like, artistic way to, like, make the two guys who are going to be wrestling in the same match with the same stakes just look like totally different people. You had Moxley, who's just this intense, crazy guy bleeding in a hallway, and then you have Adam Page, who's still intense but in a different way, and he's just upright. He's outside. I thought the dichotomy between those two promos, the go home promos for this, worked well, and they've got really good history, between each other. They've had good matches. Those matches have seemed like fights, and I think with MJF as champion, like, this is kind of, if I'm looking at it, this is kind of your pseudo number one contender match. It's like Page or Moxley, like which way are you going to go? And I think whoever wins this one is going to come out the other end as MJF's next challenger, whether that's at a Double or Nothing show or whether that's just on TV at some point. But I think they've built this match well, effectively, and I'd be tempted to put this on in the main event just because it's going to be such a long show. They're not going to. That the 60 minutes going to be in the main event, but I think this is done enough to be one of like the signature matches out here. So this one gets a thumbs up for me, and I think Paige is gonna walk away with the W.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a great build, and we don't usually give credit to AEW for some sort of longer term storytelling. Obviously, this starts back to the concussion that Hangman received in October, I think.
October, November, something like that.
Yeah, so we're talking 6 months, basically 5-6 months of a story here that's being there. And the one thing I want to give big credit to AEW on here is that this is not for a title, this is not for a tournament, this is not for a honorary plate of some sort. We're not the Great British Baking Show here either, where you get a plate if you win. So deep reference there for everybody, but it's just a feud. It's a blood feud, obviously, in all purposes, right? It's a blood feud, but it's a story between two guys, and all the meta stuff you just mentioned is obviously true as well. I think Hangman does win here. I think he's the either opponent for MJF at Double or Nothing, or he's the challenger for MJF in that in-between match, if there is one, and then Adam Cole is set up in that position after Hangman. But it's set up to put him in a good light, and the title they're fighting for is the baddest MFer in AEW, essentially. Without saying that, without making a stupid belt for it, it's who can be the most violent, destructive force in AEW, and you need someone like that to juxtapose the MJF character that will do absolutely anything to win, and a babyface that will do anything to win as well in their own way. I think it's a good foil for that MJF character. It makes that a little bit more believable of a match when that does come to pass. And you don't think it's going to be Moxley and MJF, so you think it would be Hangman and MJF. But yeah, I'm very excited for this match. I think obviously if it had the lights out gimmick, it could be the main event, but this is easily the number 2 match in my mind, if not. It's my most anticipated match, but from without a title, I think it's the number 2 match on the card. But to say that was going to be the case 5 months ago, Moxley, who's not fighting for anything, and a Hangman character who's been pretty cold for a long time, being the number 2 match, I think is good. Kudos to AEW and how they're booked.
Yeah, it's a good sign. It's a really good sign, I think, for sure. So Jon Moxley, presuming he does lose this match, and I think there's a good chance he will. What do you do with that guy, like, for the rest of this year? Once he settles this loss. I mean, there's countless people that he could work with. House of Black, I suppose. You could go back to BCC against the Elite in some kind of trios deal. So I'm not saying that there aren't options, but when you think about like the main Adam Cole, I guess you could go there, even though they're both baby faces. Even though there are places to go with him, he's worked with almost all the main event championship guys that they have. So I mean, what do you do with him this year? That'd be one reason why I wouldn't want him to lose, is because he is such a valuable part of the company and such a tip-top star. And But at the same time, they've done MJF and John Moxley, a lot, and so it's like, man, he's like one of those top guys. I feel like he's kind of like, WWE Randy Orton in some ways. Just like he's bigger, like he's done it all already, and so he's just this top guy floating around. And sometimes it's in big matches, and other times maybe it's not, and maybe that's just where John Moxley lands, for the back half of the year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at past AEW history, there's a couple ways to go, right? And the first one is the give him a vacation story, right?
Right.
You kind of do the, this is a more poor light, but MJF doing the job, so to say, to Wardlow at Double or Nothing last year, leaving the way he did, and then coming back as the the horn mask character. He was off long enough, and it's a different style altogether. But being gone for a long time and having a return, Adam Cole will be that way. If you take a month or two off and come back after Forbidden Door, and you're on that next episode of Dynamite after that and appear, I think that pops him right back in, no matter the loss here, and Page can keep doing his thing afterwards. You can also do the Chris Jericho thing, where we've seen him lose a lot, and then they've gotten his heat back. Obviously, that works more for a heel. Those would be the two positive cases of guys who have lost in some way, shape, or form in AEW and kept kind of their same standing. The opposite would be a Kenny Omega character type, where you kind of disappear and come back, and you kind of just get right in traffic and nothing important is happening, and you're only living on what fans know you for back we've done, even pre-AEW. I think one thing that has not been done that is sorely needed if he does stick around is, and this is like made harder because Eddie Kingston basically quitting AEW last night on Twitter. I think it was like a video for online, which shows how much they care about Eddie Kingston, and going to ROH. It seems, if that would not have happened, having him and Moxley go for those tag titles, I think would be important to keep Moxley in the main fray of things, and also just totally reset that tag team division, which is an utter disaster right now. So those would be your options. I don't know what they'll do, but I think him taking just even a little bit of time off, popping up, it feeling like a big deal, and then getting right back on track would be good. But long term through the year, I don't want him. I'd rather him do things like this. And even if if you have 3 more of these type of matches in the next 12 months or feuds, he's got to win 2 out of those 3. But I think you can set him up against guys like a Ricky Starks, who may not be officially ready to take on that world title angle, or if Jack Perry goes that way. I mean, Moxley's good because you can do him against baby faces, and he's going to be a baby face, but you can still have that match, and you don't have to be like, okay, well, he's got to take on Powerhouse Hobbs because that's our mid-card heel that we're going to have him go against, etc. So I think there's lots of options for him, but even going away a little bit.
I don't think going away would hurt him in this instance for a little bit, for sure. And then on the flip side, if you have Adam Page coming out of this victorious, he gets the big win. He gets to show a different side of Adam Page, and but like Derek mentions here, and unfortunately, I didn't see Adam Page as a top guy. He had a window of opportunity, but it was squandered. You only have one chance to be a breakout star. It was missed. So, Derek, I don't know that I agree that you've got only one chance to be a breakout star. I think multiple opportunities to become that can roll along. But it does beg the question, and I think it's a good point by Derek, that do you think enough has changed with Page between when he lost the title last May to now that you can go back to him as like a viable, maybe not like he's going to actually win the world title, because I don't know if that's in the cards, but like, is he a viable guy to be chasing that world title after his run? And do we get enough development from him throughout the last year to kind of have fans see him in a new light, and not like the same old, millennial cowboy chasing down that world title for the first time? Oh man, it's a tough question, because I think opposite Moxley, I think you've seen a little bit of an edge. I think you've seen a little bit of a different Adam Page, but Moxley's really the only guy that has brought that out of him. He's still saddled with the Dark Order. He's still talking about those guys like they're his best friends. I just don't. I like in this feud. I can see where you look at it and go, yeah, like we've seen this. This is going to be a new Adam Page coming out the other side, but it's like the Wardlow factor working away from MJF, just not quite as hot without that dance partner across from the ring. I think we're looking at a potentially similar issue with Page here. So I think it's the right call to go with him versus MJF. That's a fresh matchup, but it kind of feels like he's in the same spot that he was like a year plus ago. And maybe that's not a bad thing. I don't know. It's still high up on the card, but I don't know that that there's going to be any momentum there for Page to win the title.
Yeah, I mean, he's never reached the heights, which would be, of his character, to me, is still like, that last Dynamite before the pandemic started officially, I guess, in the United States, where, the crowd is just screaming cowboy shit. He's drinking like 3 beers from the front row of the crowd. Yeah. And he's just absolutely on fire as a character. And that's the peak of him, at least with the crowd, in my opinion. But I think you can, right now, I mean, if he does win this match against Moxley, that means a lot still in my mind. And he's right there as a contender, so someone that I think will lose to MJF, but feels right in that position more so than a lot of other people are positioned right now. So I don't think he's a viable person to win it. But I think a couple of things that have changed with his character has been more addition by subtraction. He's not hanging out with Dark Order as much. If he is, they're obviously have a different, he's hanging out with an Evil Uno who will be, bleeding like crazy against Jon Moxley as opposed to Johnny Hungy. And
that is so amazing. I still can't believe that. I still cannot believe like that image. We talked about it last week, but it's
insane.
Forever ingrained in my brain.
Yeah. And he's not rejoined with the Elite, who are doing goofy things more than they're doing serious things at this point. So, him being himself and having a feud like this is a big improvement from where he was by the time he dropped the title. But, I still think there's more to work with him. And, I know you didn't ask this, but if I'm thinking of like original guys with the company that I need to keep at all costs, I think Hangman Page is above, right, when I'm trying to re-sign someone, above the Bucks and Kenny at this point, because I think he's got the opportunity to. I know like Sami Zayn never was a world champion and never was put in that position, but he feels like he can reach at a certain point, like, hey, this guy's been here a long time, he's always been our guy, and you can tell an awesome story where he's in that, not Sami Zayn type category, but something like that, of like that guy who has been champion, but he's like our champion. He's been around for 10 years in AEW, and he's like always been our guy, and he's that good version of Randy Orton. I think is a good way to look at him. You said that with Moxley, but he could. I think Hangman could be that character too. Where
he could.
Been around a long time, fought everybody, but he's just kind of your guy, just the way Moxley is as well. If they team up at a certain point after having a feud like this, that would be very much in Moxley's character. So I think he's in a better spot for sure. And if continued on this path, I think can be the, A+ blue chip prospect that we all thought he was, 5-6 years ago.
That's fair. I think that's fair. And I think it's all in the follow up too. Like if you see Page coming out of this feud, win or lose, and he loses a little bit of that edge that he found here, then I think that's a miss. But if he can keep like harnessing that part of the character that he's developed with this Moxley feud, like I think that some of that intensity is what that first run with the world title was missing. So yeah, this is a big match for him, and I think you're right to call out just how important it is that this no tournament, no number one contendership, no championship contender, whatever, no title on the line, just like a pro wrestling feud, and it works. That stuff works on a pro wrestling show. So thumbs up on this for me, and it sounds like for you too, and it sounds like for mostly everybody in the match, except for maybe Sean. Sean, not a fan of the blood, not a fan of the promo. I can see why you wouldn't be a fan of that the blood with Moxley. I don't know. I think it like, where are you at this, Tyler? Like the Moxley bleeding all the time thing. Like, I don't know what it says about me, but I'm just not just doesn't bother me as much as it does some others.
Yeah, I mean, it feels. I think if it was more judicious, as I think Zach said here, I think it was more judicious on the show. I would like it more. I mean, I'm fine with it too. I think Moxley in every match he's in that he does bleed, it feels earned in most ways. Like the barbed wire shot and everything, but like I don't know if Jungle Boy needs to be bleeding after taking a chair shot, which doesn't make any sense to Christian.
Right.
On the same episode of TV, that's where you can be like, hey, Moxley is bleeding tonight, and that is it. Everyone else needs to earn it to be that guy. Like to be the guy that or gal that's able to bleed is like an earned thing, in my opinion. If you want to be successful, not just have everybody bleeding 24/7 to get over, because then it means nothing. So that's how I feel there. And one other point to make here, assuming this is going to be literally a bloodbath, I think it's a good way to get Moxley off TV to sell the bloodbath as well for a couple of weeks. This is like the only way to get Moxley off TV through not actually an injury. So I think that is being worked into here as well. So also, last, I think we're going to move on here, but this is a Texas death match. Was that because their first match was in Texas? Is that the lore of this match? Because Moxley's from Cincinnati and Paige is from Virginia, and this is taking place in San Francisco. So I think that's the reason why, is that the one of their matches took place in Texas, but is very. I was like, oh, hold on, why is this a Texas death match? So
my theory on this is that they just don't want to call it like a street fight, but they also don't want to call it like just a death match either, because that has certain implications. So let's just call it a Texas death match, because I mean I think that's like somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like a match that's happened in promotions outside of Texas. But I think it's more of like, hey, okay, we want people to think it's a death match, but we don't want to just call it a death match either, because then we're GCW and we don't want tournaments. We don't want that. Or maybe it is just because of the history, but that's not very AEW like. So
we'll see. I think Hassan's right too. I don't know if that's the official lore, but I know
because they both won. Okay.
Yeah, because did they both beat Lance Archer in a Texas death match? I mean, both beat the same guy too. So we'll see.
Poor Lance Archer. Oh gosh. Okay. Let's move on. Let's go to the tag team division and the tag team match here. We've got the Guns defending against the Acclaimed and against the wildly popular Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal Connection and Orange Cassidy and Danhausen. Fatal 4-way match. Dude, I'm sorry, but this is just not good. It's not good. And the fact that you have the hottest one of the hottest homegrown acts that AEW has constructed in the Acclaimed, kind of getting their big rematch in a fatal 4-way match with two totally random teams. Frankly, it's disappointing. I mean, I just think it's really disappointing. I think Steven, oh my God, yes, hilarious. It's not good. It's just not good. And I think that that two of like your top teams that you could make right now are stuck in this trios thing that got like 90 seconds worth of build, this week on Dynamite, and instead you've taken like a key part of like your company and what you said the company was going to be, prime and premier tag team wrestling, and it's now filled with it's I think this is the third pay-per-view in a row with it's a multi-team match, I believe. Somebody I'm sure will check me on that. Azana, I'm looking at you, my friend. But it just seems like a waste of what AEW wants this division to be. Like, I don't like, this should be Guns versus Acclaim. Period. Like, I mean, I just don't know why you have to fill this with nonsense in terms of two teams that barely really like exist at all in the AEW world. So I am not a fan of this. My guess is the Guns were going to retain, and beat one of those other teams, but it's not good. It is not good, period. And I think it's a really disappointing way for AEW to present its tag division.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's bad, and it's pretty universally treated as such, I would say, by comments especially. But yeah, it feels almost like, and I'd love, like a brief history on this. Maybe Tony will be doing the rounds. You would think. I think when's the conference call? Is there?
We just ended before we got on here.
Yeah. Hopefully, someone asked him. What was the story here? Because it feels like it was booked in reverse, where maybe Tony thought he would get an FTR back in time, or wanted them back, or there's a lot of weird things here. Like, why was Aussie Open here for 2 weeks? Like, they're probably making their rounds in the States, but like they didn't do anything in those two matches. If anything, you made those guys look like less than Butcher and Blade the way that this Battle Royals went.
Yes, yeah.
And so that was just that, like a microcosm of how strange this is. And I don't know who's booking the tag division at this point. I'm sure Tony has got some oversight, but it just feels like there was a better, like, hey, let's have 4 teams in here. And, these were not the original 4 teams chosen. Maybe Jarrett and Lethal, I can see that being the case of working their way into this, but it's very strange. And yeah, it's also kind of par for the course for the way the tag division has been booked, where the hot tag teams have lost the title, I think, way quicker than you would have planned that to be. If you look at FTR's run, the Bucks' first run, because the second one felt like a little bit more like they needed to do it. But like, it's interesting because like I thought the story here was the Acclaim just going to get their titles back, just like they did it at the last pay-per-view when they lost, but they were over and they came back and won it. And now it's all muddled here. Now, yeah, I think the Guns are going to win as well. And it's just so interesting why this is happening. And it's not good. It's easily the worst division in the company. So shout out to the women's division, who has been 900-day champions, similar to Roman Reigns' title run and being that worst division from a booking standpoint. So they've elevated. But yeah, this is bad. And hopefully this is quick. And, one tweet I liked from all of this was somebody said, it was the lineup of the match. And it was like, never in a million years, like a year ago, would I have guessed these 8 people would be in a championship match for any wrestling company at the same time. And that's like, it is like literally like that. I don't know if you follow it or seen it, but like the random match generator on Twitter or whatever, where it takes literally every active wrestler and makes random companies. And it's like, Sting versus Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber. And it's like, it feels like one of those. So it's bad. And, the Guns winning, I think, is what I think is going to happen. And I think that just leaves the division still in a pretty bad spot. Not really anything because they're doing, but they're associated with a lot of stink that's going on right now within a booking standpoint. We're watching Big Bill and Orange Cassidy about to have their match. You see the Guns are still aligned with that group. That feels way less than, and they're the tag team champions. They're beating up Orange Cassidy or Trent or whoever they were beating up. I don't remember.
Yeah,
but it's just not. It's not good.
It's not good. It's not good. And I'm trying to get into Tony Khan's head with this and go, okay, you're not actively trying to make your card worse. I would imagine, right? You're trying to make your card the best as it can be. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why. This is like adding Charlotte Flair to the main event of WrestleMania a few years ago. Like, what benefit do you get by adding Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett and Danhausen and Orange Cassidy to this match? Like, I just don't see any value there, like, at all. It's like it really boggles my mind as to why it is that they went this route. It's like Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett are not, Darby Allin doesn't have a match on the card. Sting's not going to be on the card. Jade Cargill at this point is not on the card. So, I mean, there's key people that are not on this pay-per-view, yet Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal are, Danhausen is, it just doesn't make any sense to me to do this. And I for the life of me, I try to like get in and go, okay, what's the reasoning for this? And I'm lost on this one, man. I mean, do you have any thoughts on, like, I mean, it doesn't make the match better. It's not like, oh, well, we got to get everybody on the card, so here we go. It's none of that. I really don't get it. It's just, it dirties up everything.
Yeah, the Occam's razor that I can think of is that, Jeff Jarrett is important. He's got these house shows coming up, and Tony Khan is saying thank you. So here's a payday on a pay-per-view.
Jeff Jarrett's being Jeff.
Yeah. So that, and then the other way is like, just Tony wants to pop himself, and he loves Danhausen. And, Danhausen, he's the number one merch seller in the company, right? At least last year he was. So it could be a thank you for that, and it just shows like if you're going to do stuff like that, I'd have him beat Peter Avalon on the pre-show or something, or whatever. Have him somehow be the All-Atlantic champion, because it doesn't matter. Maybe Orange Cassidy doesn't care for the night, and he transfers the title over to him, and he defends it against Peter Avalon. Like, that's better, because that belt doesn't mean anything, and it never has. And the tag titles did mean something. They do mean something. They can mean something. And if you're gonna have fun, like, yeah, you own the company, but like, don't counterintuitively hurt yourself by having Danhausen be the second most likely team to win the titles, in my opinion, at this point, because they're there for a reason, and they were put in as the Cody Rhodes of that Rumble, of that Battle Royal. They were the guys to come out last, and they took out the most dangerous tag team in AEW Battle Royal history, in the Butcher and the Blade, I think is how they portrayed them, which I could not help but giggle at, that they were being put over as monsters. But it's not good. I think that's what it is, but that's again some bad habits rearing their head and being manipulated and or just popping yourself by putting who you want out there for that reason. And I think it shows that, this is just me alleging, but you can feel Tony Khan ebbing and flowing with certain characters, and then you can tell when he totally gives up on, like, this kind of sucks, and they just disappear forever. I think there's two members of SEU that fit that way, that, I don't necessarily think we're main eventers, but, there's people that disappear all the time on AEW television for a reason. So.
Fair enough. I want to scroll because there's a question here. Okay. Zach jumping in. Well, AEW still has the Young Bucks, Lucha Brothers, Blackpool Combat Club, the Acclaimed. Why the heck? I mean, I know why. The Trios division is kind of holding these guys back, but it's like the best teams that you have are not in. This will be my last comments on this. The best tag teams that you have are not in. Essentially, they're not in the tag division right now. Like, that's a huge problem, and the Trios titles don't mean nearly enough to take that kind of talent and that kind of focus out of the tag division, period. And so that's a problem. It's a problem that your top teams are not competing for and don't seem to care about the tag team titles. I think that really has set the tag division way back. And we said it from the very beginning, like, that the Trios titles were gonna have that impact. I didn't even think it'd be to this level, but man, it's okay. Rant over. Go ahead, take that if you want.
No, I mean,
I've got nothing else.
Can't agree with you more. And we said it from the beginning. It's even quicker than I would have projected this would have.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it'd be like right now with, you have a tag team championship in most wrestling companies because you have, let's say the roster 70% men, 30% women, probably even higher than that if you look at other rosters, but you just have like more men to do that, right? So if you did the same thing, like if you added a women's tag title in AEW currently, that would put Jamie and Britt probably as your champions, and then you would have something else that would take away from, Jamie or Britt should be in the world title picture, right? If you make them tag team champions, you're just hurting that division by diluting it, and that's what you're doing with the Trios versus the tag division, where you could have, even, like, I'm not opposed to a 4-way, a 3-way match. If you had, Malachi Black and Brody King and the Bucks and the Acclaimed in a match or something, that feels like deserving of a pay-per-view.
Right.
There's lots of things to do. The Lucha Bros could be, there's a lot going on there. You can also have good competitive matches every 3 to 4 weeks on TV between good tag teams, and not have the Guns and Billy Gunn being the main storyline of why these teams are interacting for months on end. So
yeah, and I think, and also like the Guns thing with I said it was gonna be my last thing, but it won't. The Guns and Billy Gunn. There's something that just bothers me about how they've gone about that feud. It's like you have like fathers and sons like beating each other up, and yeah, it's treated as just like this kind of like afterthought interaction, and I don't know. It just seems like that something like that should be more serious and more like paid attention to, and not treated as just this funny thing. But like you got your kid, the Guns just whipping Billy with the chair, and like it's just kind of like nothing. And you put that up against like the Dominic and Ray stuff, and look, they're not the same kind of thing. I'm not trying to like compare the two feuds, but I'm just saying that like every time I see that happen in AEW, I'm like, man, like people should probably put more into this like father son storyline. Low card, but hey, that it's a thought that bounces around.
It is literally the third most prestigious title in the company, right? The tag team titles. I'd say the men's, the women's, and then the tag titles is probably the hierarchy of that from a legacy of the company and whatnot. And it is low card content. It's for that belt, so that's the driver for it. Like this should be what the Guns in the after the Acclaimed lost the titles to somebody. This story they should be telling.
Yes,
they should be having a feud on Dynamite between the Guns because of Billy Gunn. Like that makes total sense. It is totally fine. But yeah, it's just it is wild where this has gone, and it's one of the things that needs a big reset. But yeah. So who do you got, by the way, in the match? You got the Guns officially?
Guns, yeah, Guns for sure. I mean, I think if it was a singles match, like it'd be more up in the air, and like the Acclaim. But I just don't think the Acclaim are going to get their win back in a 4-way like this. So
yeah, and you want the Guns to be heels. They beat up Billy and they pinned Danhausen.
Right. I mean, I think Danhausen's doing the job. He's also collecting the checks, so that's good on him. Okay, let's see. Let's go next to Ricky Starks versus Chris Jericho. Jericho Appreciation Society barred from ringside. Zach, I think you're going to be disappointed, my friend. I think you're going to. I'm pretty confident in the Guns' victory here. Pretty confident. We'll see come Sunday night. All right, Chris Jericho versus Ricky Starks. Jericho Appreciation Society barred from ringside. For what this is, I've been fine with this. I think it's a good next thing for Ricky Starks to do, coming out of really kind of elevating himself to the next level with that MJF program to start the year or at the end of last year. So I think this has been like a logical next step. It's time to wrap it up. It's time to get Ricky Starks the win, which I think he will. I thought the go home angle was fine, paint by numbers and simple, but that's all it needed to be. And so, I think Ricky Starks is going to get a big win, and on he goes. So for what this is, I think it's thumbs up, and it's a good way to elevate Starks further. Match should be good, and this nothing wrong with this in my eyes.
Yeah, there's certainly a match like you alluded to that should have, ideally would have ended like 3 weeks ago. Would have been the pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. This match would have really been in a better spot.
It's time.
It's dragged along, and I do wonder is this a way to debut a new person for Jericho? I know they haven't outlined the fine lines of what it is, but it feels to me very much like Jericho is definitely going to cheat in some way, shape, or form. And is that someone debuts and they're aligned with Jericho as a result, but Stark still wins? That would be a way to, because this needs something, right? We see with every Jericho match in the last year or so. That he needs a little bit of something. I mean, he still put on great matches for how old he is, and he always picks a good dance partner to do that with. But Starks is more of that, WWE style wrestler where he's got his moves, he's got kind of the way he lays out the match is kind of similar, and that doesn't always pair well with Jericho, especially if you're going to do a 15-minute match with no bells and or whistles. So I'm a bit concerned about that, but I have faith in both of them to obviously think the same thing I'm thinking, and know there's got to be something there. So curious about that. But yeah, this is a way to get Starks continue on his trajectory. Feels like him, Page, and Cole are the top 3 baby faces coming out of this pay-per-view. So that's good. I think that's a positive with the company. And what Jericho does after that point, because it would kind of finish the Jericho loses all the time, and the JAS loses all the time. Maybe Jericho will change in some way, shape, or form, and that can always be interesting. Also, I like that Starks and Action Andretti seem to not be communicating for any reason at this point, which I think is a good call for Ricky Starks, just not be tied to that guy. Just nothing against Andretti, but he's just, he's green, and he doesn't need to be hanging around with the top guy by just doing spins and stuff. Just didn't work, and I think they made a good call aborting that pretty quickly.
I do too. You got to wonder, or I don't know. I wonder what Jericho thinks now of like kind of putting him over in that match. I think it was a fine way to like get him. Not sure why my camera is blurry. Sorry, folks. Just get another star in play, in the company. But like, yeah, he's definitely cooled off, and it's good that Starks is not around that right now. Just because I think he's just got such a higher upside. Like, I just think he's a guy that I think could, he's not there yet, but if he keeps going and keeps his momentum and keeps having good matches, he's put himself into a conversation where, before he was kind of, I don't want to say forgettable, but okay, like he's on the card, he's not on the card. Okay. No big deal. And I think he's put himself in a position now where, he needs to be on these cards. He needs to be on these shows. He needs to have something to do, every time they're on pay-per-view. So, and this is another chance for him to kind of show that and deliver. We'll see what the crowd reaction is to him. Usually it's pretty strong. So this is a good mid-card feud for the company and a good mid-card feud for Ricky Starks too. He's another guy that I think could come out of this at some point, and have a rematch with MJF for the world title down the road if things stay on the trajectory that they are.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna lay it out in some way, shape, or form with MJF, like I said, the 3 guys I think would go against him, and I think one of those 3 would probably defeat him, Cole, Page, or Starks. Beyond that, I don't know what it would be, but yeah. So you're in that category, and this match I think will be totally whelming of a match.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. But I think there'll be some shenanigans to kind of keep it interesting. So I'm curious what that is. I did like the San Francisco crowd, which felt pretty muted last night. That was the first show in San Francisco, right, in the history of the company.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Okay.
I think haven't they been to the Cow Palace before?
Maybe early. I know Hassan will have that info pulled up right away. So, but before Jarrett kind of helped with booking dates, it seemed like they had not done many West Coast. I mean, we talked about kind of started the shows that they were basically doing your neck of the woods, and then like my neck of the woods and the Northeast, and that was about it, right? So, but the crowd did the F your hat. I thought that was a great crowd reaction. There you go. So, but like, for a crowd that didn't have a lot to cheer for, because what match were they absolutely dead for? Was that?
It was the battle royal, the tag battle royal. For sure.
There was a singles match that I liked that the crowd was absolutely dead for. I don't know, maybe it's the women's match, but anyway, that was good reaction there, and I think there's something to do there, and to keep that faction interesting. Have Jericho maybe align with more of a serious person. Maybe you infuse him with someone that's more serious to take that tag division by storm, and he kind of drops the JAS buffoons, because that's where they are right now. So we'll see. But Hook and Matt Hardy. Yeah. I mean, I didn't think that was very good, but yeah, that was not.
Hook sold a little bit in that match. That's pretty weird.
Hardy's a good guy to like kind of lead a guy who's green through that. So I thought Hardy did a good job on that front, but the crowd did not care at all. I think one thing to think about, and I know, I'm sorry we're talking about Matt Hardy on the show. We have precious time. Like, just from he's not involved in the card or anything, but like I do think it's a disservice to him to play that music, especially when he's not on TV very often. To play the Hardy Boys music, because I was like, oh my god, it's Jeff back, and I'm like doing a show on PWTorch's YouTube page, and I was like, oh no, Jeff's not back. That's just Matt Hardy's music, and that's got to like kill him in the arena for the fans thinking it's Jeff, and then Matt walks out, and then that's it. So
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah,
dude, no, I thought the exact same thing, and I took a different step further. I was just like, man, that entrance music just like, I was like, oh, poor Hook, like, I mean, you're not gonna boo Matt Hardy now after playing that. Everybody loves hearing that music and the Hardys coming out, and then you add on to that, like, that's kind of like Jeff's music. I thought the same exact thing, man. I thought the same thing. Anything else on Jericho and Starks?
No, I think Starks has to win. It'd be a big issue if Jericho wins because it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm confident. I'm confident in my first 3 picks here of Paige. Who's my second pick? Oh, Paige, Guns, Starks. I'm like super confident in those. We'll see. Okay. I don't know how much time you want to give this match because it didn't seem like anybody in the match wanted any time to promote it, but we have the Elite defending the Trios Championships against House of Black. This is another one of those matches that I'm just flabbergasted is not significantly hotter than it is right now. I mean, when you think about like Trios teams that the Elite can defend these titles against, if they are hell-bent on like making these titles mean something, and yeah, right. Hey, confident nonetheless, Steven. If you're so hell-bent on making these titles mean something and matter, and you're having all these top teams wrestle for them, like, this is a huge match for this division, if that's the premise. House of Black, is strangely protected, in AEW because they don't wrestle all that much. They kind of have these kind of dark, vignettes that we all know, the backstage promos, which I think is silly, but at the same time, like, they're a protected team that has, I think, some credibility behind them with the people that are in that group. And so when you think up in your head, like, all right, who are some of the best opponents for the Elite to wrestle in, like in this Trios title run, like House of Black was at the top of my list, and Blackpool Combat Club not far behind. And we get like a couple segments and then 90 seconds of build on Dynamite where they like steal the belts and then give them back. Like, it was just, to me, just like disappointing. And this is one of those things in AEW where the match, I'm sure, is going to be awesome, and I'm excited to watch it on pay-per-view once it happens. But like, this is business. You gotta get something out of this. And I just think they left so much on the table in terms of build, in terms of hype, in terms of presenting, both sides as equal and dominant factions in AEW. Like, they left like so many stones unturned in terms of different angles to go to build this feud, and basically did nothing for it. So I mean, as I said, I'm excited for the match, but man, super disappointed in what they did here. And all that said, I think, the Elite take this and take it and run.
Yeah, I'm looking through the card right now, and it seems like, if you have 8 matches, it seems like 5 of them you're allowed to talk to your opponent on TV, like directly to them, like while they're standing in the same room as you. And then the other 5, Wardlow Joe, this match, I would say definitely the tag team, even though the Guns and Acclaimed have talked, they haven't really talked about this 4-way with each other.
Right.
And even the women, too, they haven't really talked directly to each other. They've talked in other areas and then, like, interacted via fighting. So, very strange strategy that, like, half your matches you don't really talk to your opponent directly the way we saw, see Perry and Cage and Danielson and MJF and Moxley and Page, the ones that have good builds, right? I mean, we talk about Cage and Perry, and that's more of a culmination than a good build. But it's an interesting strategy where this doesn't work ever. Whether you take the House of Black and Elite out of this, you put any wrestler and you have them not interact on TV at all together, essentially, and just have like You have the Elite mess with, what's the most noteworthy thing the Elite have done in the past month on TV? Because to me, it's
make a basketball shot in the back.
Yeah, it's like Cassidy moaning in Kenny Omega's ears, the most memorable thing they've done in a month of.
Yes, right.
So and then the House of Black just doing their promos. Like last night, I don't know what the hell Malachi Black's talking about, and I think that's the point. But it's kind of like playing a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring type game where the lore is kind of all there if you read the item description, but you need to go to a website to read the story because you don't get it because you're sitting there playing it, right? That's how House of Black did it. It just, this doesn't work at all. This hasn't worked. I don't think any House of Black match has worked from a build standpoint for me. I don't think many Kenny, Bucks, Elite feuds have worked outside of the ring, outside the bell ringing and the 1, 2, 3 happening. They've worked in that capacity. House of Black a little less. I think Brody King's little run with Darby Allin's the best thing I can say about House of Black characters from a character development standpoint, and it's just like kind of a culmination of that here. And I like all 6 guys a lot in the match. And it's like hurts me to say it, but they're just not presented like they're worth much of anything from an AEW standpoint. And this just feels like a match like, hey, this is good. Here we go. It's definitely like I'm watching New Japan where I watch the big events every year, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course this should be a match at a big event, and I don't really need to know any of the story behind it, but that's just not the way North American wrestling works on a weekly episodic product, and it's treating it differently. I think over the past 3-4 years, it's proven to not work in this medium. It works for that medium. And if they are wrestling the biggest indie event of the year, the Friday before WrestleMania, and this was the match, I'd be like, this is awesome. I can't believe I'm seeing this. This is cool. But when they're interacting in the same company and can have promos together, it doesn't work. So
I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, I 100% agree. Are you taking the Elite too, or are we going to see a title change here?
I'd take the Elite. This is probably one of the closer matches that does not have a bajillion people in it, but I would say probably 75% likelihood the Elite win this. All
right, very good. Samoa Joe and Wardlow. A little bit more of a personal feud. TNT Championship on the line. We know that Powerhouse Hobbs is going to challenge for that title next week on AEW Dynamite. So I'll throw to you first on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I grew my hair out as well in solidarity with Wardlow. That's why we did that. I'm just kidding. That retconning that story, I don't know if we talked about it. Probably did at the time, but that just hit me the wrong way to be like, yeah, I wanted a haircut because my hair looked dumb, and I'm going to now make it a story that I never talked about once whatsoever and didn't define my character whatsoever. Just not super effective, I would say. But yeah, I mean, the Wardlow character, has he... I wonder who did Jack Perry, he got 100 wins, and that was a big deal, or Darby Allin or something. Didn't they celebrate someone getting the first time to 100
wins? Well, Moxley got 100 wins.
Moxley, okay. So, Wardlow's probably tossed 200 AEW security people in his time. They should make an honorary event for him on that, because it's like that's his whole story, is that he just comes in and throws guys in black t-shirts, and that character's not really working for me either. But yeah, I think Joe is set up to be on Ring of Honor and be a destination viewing on that program, the way Eddie Kingston's being set up to try and lure people to pay the Honor Club price to watch that, and having Hobbs in place, Wardlow and Hobbs match next week tends to make sense to me, but I don't know if Wardlow having a brief or even long TNT title run does much for me at this point, but it feels like if he does win it, which I'm predicting he will win it, Wardlow that is, that this is going to be a very important run for his career to make sure it's worthwhile, or else he might be the Preston Vance, Lance Archer mode for a while.
Yeah, right. And that's where you don't want him to go. It's like this whole situation is kind of like what I see as a potential, or not potential, but a regular kind of part of the show and part of AEW that has to get cleaned up, because I think Wardlow versus Powerhouse Hobbs next week, and I think Wardlow's going to win too. I think Joe is set up for that ROH role. I think it's a smart role for him to have, and I think it's going to if anybody has value to that brand and can get some eyes on it, it's Joe. And so I think that it's smart to have somebody like that if you're going to present that as a show that you need to watch. But with that said, you want to take the TNT title off him. So Wardlow goes over. The thing is, though, it's like Wardlow against Powerhouse Hobbs is that's a compelling match to have. But is it the smartest match to have for those guys and for your show and for your company right now? And I would argue that it's 100% not a smart match to have, because like a big win like this for Powerhouse Hobbs, he wins the Face of the Revolution ladder match. He's in his hometown, big pop, like, and now a week later, they're not going to get anything out of that. Like one way or the other. Like, I think that Hobbs he gets this big win and then he's going to go, and I don't think they're going to flip the title from Wardlow to Hobbs that fast. So it's like, now you have to have Wardlow beat Hobbs, and you've now blown through like a potential key match that you can have between both those guys down the road. And so this is one of those situations where I'm just like, man, have somebody else win this thing. Like Sammy Guevara, if Wardlow's going to win the title, on Sunday night, have Sammy win the Face of the Revolution ladder match, and do that match, next week, and have Wardlow roll through him, and there you go. So it's like, it just, I think they hurt themselves a bit here with Hobbs as the for sure next challenger to Wardlow. Needless to say, the match itself, I think, is going to be what it is, and I think it is a big run for Wardlow. I mean, a really big run for Wardlow, and I think you want I think you really want him to establish himself with this run, and the last run really didn't get off the ground at all, and I think you need to have him talk more. I think you need to have him like presented more as somebody that you're behind as a company. And this is a good start, getting him the title on him is a good start. But they got to follow through. I think that's the key for me. Do you like Wardlow here, or any comments on Wardlow versus Hobbs?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll win, and I think it sets up like, what do you do with Wardlow after he presumably beats Hobbs? But knowing this title history, I think a hot shot is not totally out of the question to have like Wardlow win it, then Hobbs win it the next week. But
I guess that's true.
But that's I don't think good for the belt either. But if let's say Wardlow does beat Joe and then Hobbs, he's the the ultra heavyweight champion of the company for a good period of time, right? So if you're going to be going against a bunch of Sammys and Darbys and whatever that Action Andretti's, whoever you want to put in that spot against him. I don't know. It's just gonna be a run of him destroying guys, and I want to see some longer matches out of him. And he had some good matches.
Yep.
At the end of his run, he was like showing some good stuff, and then disappeared off the face of the earth, which is kind of the problem. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just about that. At this point, I'd rather see Hobbs get a shot with that title than Wardlow. Is kind of where I stand. So I'll be hoping for a hot shot at that point, but. Or maybe if Joe win as a surprise and Wardlow beats him, and then Joe's on ROH because they've already done some of those tapings. So what would it matter? But we'll see. I just, I like the title more. The TNT title, that is, has always worked better as a underdog babyface, kind of taking open challenges, and those have been the better runs. Not that every run of the title can be that, but that Cody second run, the Darby runs. Been the best example of what that title can be, and that's someone that is a workhorse and works every week and has different style of matches. Someone that is a Swiss Army knife of performance. If Claudio was not the ROH champion, I'd like to see him be TNT champion and have 6 matches in 9 weeks and have them be absolute bangers and get that spot that Joe had for weeks on end and build him up more than what he's currently doing, being a guy in a battle royal, and then you're supposed to watch him main event another show. It's just very crazy booking to me on that front. But that's digress. Again, tag team issues all the way across. So.
Yeah, still goes back to that. Yeah. Well said. And you're taking Wardlow also.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see, what do we got next year? Okay. Jungle Boy against Christian Cage. Bizarre. I don't even know what.
This is a buried alive match. Is that the stip, right?
Right. Yes, this is the buried alive match stipulation. So, yeah, I mean, a really bizarre way to finish this off. I just too cute, way too cute, way too just. They did too much with it. Like, I thought Christian Cage went out there and cut a hell of a heel promo, and like the way you want to see somebody respond to that is out there on that stage promoing back, end of segment, end of build, you go to the match. Like, I thought they just took the wind out of Christian's sails with that promo by pivoting to like a weird video where he's digging up a grave for Christian Cage, and it's not a buried alive match, and Jack Perry's like he couldn't hit Christian Cage with a steel chair, but he can bury him alive. Like, it totally didn't land for me. Like, I thought that whole thing just fell absolutely flat on its face. I think, like, generally, I think this has been a pretty well built match. Like, overall, I thought it's one of the better long term kind of story arcs that they've done, even though they had to like pump the brakes on it. And again, I thought Christian was masterful last night, but for Jack Perry to like follow that up and respond to that with that really was just falling just flat on his face. And I think Jack Perry's going to win, obviously. I think Jungle Boy gets the W here, of course. But yuck. It was just so bizarre and so weird. And I don't even think it was really shot all that well either. Like, so it was like a bad piece of production in addition to just being just ridiculous.
Yeah, I was channeling my inner wave when I was thinking, like, just imagine from a kayfabe standpoint, what if Christian Cage came out there and like apologized for going too far, and like he wants to have a real match with Jack Perry, and then Jack Perry's already turned in that video where I'm burying him alive. I'm going to look like a total a-hole right now. So just that has become so contrived to do that. It didn't fit his character at all. And I was thinking back on this, like, this story was awesome, one of the best stories in AEW, right until the injury where they just had the big match. And I was thinking, like, they really should have had Jungle Boy pin Christian, because I'm not mistaken, right? Christian won that match even though he was injured, right?
Yes.
That was so I think Jungle Boy should have beaten him because he was injured, and then Cage comes out like, you didn't beat me, I'm injured, I'll be, I've got surgery, I'll be out for whatever. And then he comes back and you can have that continue the story of like, you never beat me clean, you cheated, everyone thinks you're a baby face, and you kind of lean into that, like, people like Jungle Boy, but he's kind of an a-hole on the mic, and like he comes across a little bit more smarmy than he is in character, right? So that was like, ever since then, it's been a little snake bit. It's good to get through this, and I think Jungle Boy wins, but an unfortunate injury, because I think a 3 3/4 4-star match between these two back when it originally happened would have been much better for Jungle Boy. And also, like, maybe they're saving for the match, but I didn't check the betting odds on this, but where's Luchasaurus been? I think that is like something to really look out for in this match, that having him on his side like makes me think this could continue. I don't think it should, but at this point, like, if you're asking me honestly under Truth Serum, like, who's more value to AEW at this point, I think it's this Christian Cage character than Jack Perry digging holes and taking souls. So sorry, I had to get that in, but I'm serious. If I'm advising Tony Khan, I'm like, give Cage the win, have Luchasaurus cheat, and like, I don't know. Not that I'm like burying literally Jungle Boy, but it's just not working. And I think, what does he do after this point? Like, he's not in the Cole, Starks, and Hangman territory right now.
No.
So maybe it's him defeating Wardlow at a certain point, or him defeating Hobbs and being TNT champion near the end of the year to kind of finish that goal. But like, to be a singles champion, he doesn't need to beat Cage here to do it, in my opinion. Because, and also, if you're an up and coming wrestler, watch Christian Cage's promo last night where he just absolutely ran through the crowd reaction to everything he was saying. It's like a clinic on how to get through crowd reaction during promo. So.
It really was. And Tracy, I think you're right here, and I don't think you're in the minority about this, but really liking what Christian is doing in AEW. I mean, I think that the problem with Christian in AEW was that the way he was presented coming in was significantly higher, than where he actually is. And there's no shame in that. He's had a 20+ year career and he's made a bunch of money and he's had huge matches and he's won world titles. Like it's not a knock. It's not to the level how they were hyping him, but he is super valuable to the company right now. I agree. And I think, to your and Tyler's point, he could teach the younger ones how to present themselves as a star. I agree with that. I mean, he owned that ring last night. That was. I mean, the Danielson promo, we'll get to that in a minute, was excellent also. But man, I mean, Christian Cage just had everybody like right in the palm of his hand, man, and looked confident in doing so. So that's why it was so kind of shocking to see like the weird video. Like, oh man, like that's the moment you want to see Jungle Boy come out there and capitalize off of all that heat that Cage, built out there, and just kind of all this like fizzled away with some weird video that the Undertaker would have produced in 1989. Anyway, all right.
But
so you're going Cage then, or are you going Jack Perry?
Yeah, I'll go Cage because I think we're going to be the same everywhere else. So we'll be one different.
Okay.
I think
that's like a habitual like move these days for our previews.
Well, AEW's their shows are pretty predictable, which I think is its own issue. So having one or two matches go away, like I think if Joe and Cage won, I think the show would be better for it because the next show you would be like, oh well, in my brain somewhere in the deep recesses of my subconscious, I would think like, okay, it doesn't go exactly the way I think it's going to go every time, even though that's how AEW shows tend to go.
Yeah. All right, women's title match. Jamie Hayter defending against Ruby Soho and Saraya. Boy, I think I might be in the minority of just not liking this whole thing with the women's division. I don't know who it's for. Like it's all just kind of happening, and there's these sides that neither one of which I'm invested in because one of them is stacked with heels in AEW as of a month ago, and it just for me is really hard to invest. And I think that I think that this is something where it's like, man, well, first of all, I don't know that Saraya should be in, championship matches at this point. I mean, her physicality in there is not believable to me. And like, I just am not really buying her in this role. Needless to say, Jamie Hayter is the champion, and again, for like the third champion in a row, like the opponents for her have not been like lined up in a way that just lets her knock them down and like establish herself with a title reign. And they're right back where they are, right back where they were here too. And so this match is happening, and I feel like the audience doesn't really know how to feel about any of the women involved. And so it's, in my eyes, it's a mess. And I think Hayter wins. I think Soho jobs, and you're exactly where you were a month ago come Wednesday on AEW Dynamite. So I'm not a fan of this at all. Hey, you don't need to apologize, Zach. We like what we like. No biggie. But yeah, that's where I'm at on it. I mean, and the match probably it could be fine, like whatever, but it's just not hitting on for me.
Yeah, this match feels like it's a stepping stone to that blood and guts match that is probably coming between the OGs and the outsiders, right? Which is not good to build a title match around, where you think is going to be the next thing. It's a stepping stone to a match on TV, or is usually not the best way to go about things. And to me, this feud has been very much Omega and Hangman level of booking, where there's a lot there, and if you fill in the gaps yourself and do a 15-minute explainer YouTube video of like, hey, why you should care about this feud, here's all the interesting details that are being Easter eggs throughout the promos and all this sort of stuff. And here's Britt Baker being so, she's making references to the Bella twins, and maybe she'll be there. All that stuff is there if you're a super fan, but it's not working for people watching on TV. That it should be like hitting you over the head pretty hardcore, just the way MJF and Danielson are hitting you over the head week over week over week with the same sort of stuff in different angles. Is we're original AEW people. These people left the bigger company, came here because it wasn't working for them, and now they're angry that the OGs are doing better than them, and they're whatever. That's the story, right? But they're not saying it, and they're having these. I like Storm and Riho a lot as a match. It was a good 50-50 match. I didn't know who was going to win. Thumbs up. I love matches like that on television where I don't know how it's going to go, and to then just have all this happen after the match where they just all kind of fight, and that's like, oh yeah, I definitely want to see this match between all these people I didn't just see wrestle, that kind of went in here and, they're not even really alluding to Ruby Soho still has a decision to make, right? Like, is she going to side with somebody? Is she working with Saraya already, and she's going to help Saraya cheat to win, and it's a 2-on-1 match? Like, all these things that would be very obvious and brought up over and over again, and we'd be like, ad nauseum, this is what's going to happen. Like, when you watch Sammy and Roman, the Bloodline are going to commit at some point. And yes, you might not like that as a fan, but that's like, Sammy's got to overcome not just beating Roman, but he's got to overcome beating the whole Bloodline too. That's the story for Jamie and what it should be. And the thing with Jamie that you're talking about is she's still second fiddle to Britt, and she's the world champion. Like, if you, I do the live report, and I write down what I hear when it's Tony Schiavone backstage. He's like, I've got Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter here. He doesn't have Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker, and
not even world champion Jamie Hayter. I don't think.
And visually, Britt is smart. Britt is super intelligent. She's a dentist. She's making a ton of money here. If not, she'd be an excellent marketer, because if you look visually, it's always Britt, then Jamie, then the person, right? So you read left to right if you read English, and she visually puts herself in the focal point of every shot, and that's fine. She's getting herself over, but she is not the most important person, and she's the world champion, and that's been the problem with lots of world champions in the past, also not having opponents. So yes. I do think the blood and guts match can be good. It's just there's too much in between the lines here to make this the story that it can be, and that's disappointing. So.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, I totally agree, and I think somebody said it in the chat. Yeah, Sean in here. I'm with him on this. I don't care whether or not Ruby Soho is with, or okay, she's with the OGs. Okay, she's not with the OGs. They haven't established either side as the side to me that you should be rooting for. Because like I said, one side is full of heels and the other side is full of newly turned heels. And it's okay, so she's going to just join one of these groups. And I think if you're going to do it, if you're going to tell the story, like Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter should be universally cheered strongly, because of a definitive change in direction and definitive change in character that the audience can get behind. And we haven't seen that, which makes it really hard to buy. As far as this would be an interesting, Tracy, for sure. Thunder Rosa come back in and shaking things up. She'd do that for sure. I think that to me, what they should be doing, I forget who asked this question. I think it was Zahn, maybe. That would I don't, if you're going to do this, if you're building to blood and guts, okay, maybe this is a good road, to travel down. They just need to do it more efficiently. But if it's not a blood and guts thing, there was a pop when Saraya and Jamie Hayter got into it last night. That's a match you could go to. And to really establish Jamie Hayter as different from Britt Baker and her equal, those two, in my eyes, should have been feuding with each other already at this point. To really get Hayter's title reign off to a hot start. It didn't go that way, but that's what I would have done in this situation. Do we see Mercedes Moné somewhere in this over the weekend?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Forbidden Door makes sense too. but not here. But certainly it needs something, I would say, especially if you're gonna, if you're gonna pad out a 4-on-4 blood and guts match, maybe she'd be something like that. Especially she will put her body on the line for entertainment. So I think she would be a great participant in a match like that as well. But I think almost certainly Forbidden Door 2, you will see her. But maybe
yeah. And that will be exciting when that happens. Okay, last but not least, we got the main event, 60-minute Iron Man match. Bryan Danielson challenging MJF for the AEW World Championship. Man, this feud has been going on for a long time, and they've we're here. I think I don't know what this says about AEW World Title feuds, but I think this is probably one of the best built ones that they've done, at least in the recent past. I genuinely don't think there's anything that they could have done that would have really truly convinced me that Bryan Danielson might win. So I think they were totally swimming upstream on that. But I think they did enough though to just make you think okay, it could happen. It could happen. I thought Bryan Danielson's promo last night was fantastic. Just a go home babyface promo by definition, putting it all on the line, so overwhelming that even MJF couldn't find the words to talk back to him. I thought it was just a great way to wrap up this feud that has seen highs and lows and everything in between. But hey, we're here, and I think it's in a good place to main event one of the bigger shows that they're going to do. The Iron Man match stipulation is always a risk because you just never know how those things are going to go. But you got Danielson in it and MJF too, and I think those two guys can put on a good match. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do here, and I give it a thumbs up. I've liked how they kind of crossed the finish line with everything.
Yeah, I think we all know what the finished product of this is going to be. Who's going to have the belt at the end of it, and that has always been the case. Which not always ideal, but it's worked in WWE, right? For Roman, he's going to win every match basically since he's been on his title run. So I think they've just been really, really good knowing all that around it. That they've, like you said, been swimming upstream. I think they've made me care about it on 3 different occasions where I've been kind of lacking in my engagement on it. And so yeah, it's all positive, and that's a credit to MJF changing his character. They kind of lead in way too hard on this as an MJF style match, to a feud. So he's got to, that we were both very down on that when that started, and they've changed course. Yeah. That's it. MJF was a big part of that. Danielson went from being I'm happy to be here and I'm coming out of the heel corner and I'm just kind of a wrestler and I don't really care about having a character, kind of just having a good time and not being a vital component of the company. I think both of them have grown in a positive way. So, Danielson after this feels like more of an asset, and MJF feels now like a proper world champion, defeating a Moxley and a Danielson, and whoever beats him then feels like a bigger deal whenever that happens, just like whoever's from is already solidified as a top guy. So all that's good. I'm very curious how they do the falls. This to me, I know the chat is going through how many falls. I'm definitely like a low fall, like a 3. I don't know what the number is. I'd love to see the numbers. Probably like a 5.5 total falls would be the bet. Yeah, like a 3 to 2 would, or I guess one more. Anyway, I'm not good with statistics, but I think almost certainly, and let me know if you agree. Bree is going to be there in the crowd, right? There's too many references to, MJF explicitly talking to her and Birdie, and Britt Baker last night doing the whole song.
Yeah.
You can't touch, but so there's certainly going to be a fall where MJF is going to slap Brie Bell in the face, and Danielson's going to DQ himself and get a fall that way, right? There's got to be MJF gets 3 falls, 2 of them are going to be underhanded, he goaded Danielson in to get DQ falls against him, right? That's the story being told, and or maybe they're all underhanded. It could be the diamond ring and punch and then a pin with 1 inch to go, But like it feels like almost all of them have to be him underhandedly screwing Danielson out of this match, right? I mean, that just seems like
I think so. And I think like if like someone like a Bree is there and they do some kind of angle with with his family, like I mean I could see that being the finish to the match. To be honest, like as a way to like finish it, protect Bryan, get MJF the win. And I think the story to me is like, are you going to see MJ? Like, I don't want to see MJF kind of wrestle Danielson style and then win with Danielson style. I just don't think that's in line with like that MJF character. To me, like the heel in this instance, like figures out a way to not beat Bryan Danielson at his own game, but still win the match. So I think that's a very much a possibility, to have Brie Bella out there, and that'd be a fun angle. I mean, it'd be a good angle to kind of close the match with. I think it doesn't have to be the finish either, but I think it could easily be. What I don't want to see is like, and this is what bothers me with Iron Man matches all the time, is like I don't want to see it like 7-6, like 13 falls in a match, or like I think this is like if it's a tight like 2-1, that would work for me. And I think I trust Danielson on that, like to tell a good story there. Like this isn't like Rock Triple H, 23 years ago, having like 10 falls or whatever it was. Like, I just don't think you want that, but yeah, I mean, MJF is going to win this. He's going to win it with underhanded tactics. I mean, I think that's the question is how. So, but it still can be an entertaining match. I have no doubt about that. So,
yeah, I would almost book it like 10-1, and like have at the very end of the match, like do the thing I said, and then have Danielson hit MJF in the head with a chair like 10 times in a row, get 10 DQs, and like MJF just, he looks like he bladed, and he looks like Moxley at the end of the show last week, and he's just on the top of the stage like smiling because he did it. Like he did what he had to win. Like he went to that deep dark place, and Danielson's like, oh my God, what have I done? He beat me mentally. Like that would be such an interesting story. I don't think they'll do that, but like that's kind of
well. Even if it's not 10-1, I think that type of finish would work well. Like even if it's not like something that they go like that dramatic about, but like that story, I think plays for sure, absolutely, and is likely. I would say. All right, well, cool. So we gotta bounce here. But thank you to everybody who joined the show. I know we promised Cody and Roman discussion. We will make sure to hit that tomorrow. One of us will be here. I think it'll be me who will be on live here on the channel tomorrow, and so we will discuss Cody and Roman then. Please join us then. We'll be around same time, around 4 Eastern. Keep it locked to PWTorch on Twitter at PWTorch for updates on when that's going to be, but hopefully you all join us there. Really appreciate everybody joining us live to talk AEW Revolution. It's been fun. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button so you know when we go live, which is many times throughout the week. If you haven't checked out Stephanie Chase's work for the PWTorch YouTube channel, do yourself a favor and check that out. She's live in the building last night, and we'll be at Revolution on Sunday, and so we'll be providing some really cool insight on the channel as to her experience with that. So with that said, we'll catch you guys later. Tyler, thank you, man. A pleasure as always. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, let me know when you go on tomorrow. Maybe we can do that talk for the
awesome. Yeah, I will for sure.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. See you later. Peace.